where I come from. And therefore, that's my biodata. Please have a look at it for just a few 5 to 10 seconds so that I can save my time. My contact is there. And if you have anything, you may call me to discuss. And you can see that I have some connections with Australia also. Enough? Right. Okay. Let's go on to the next. Now, segregation that is happening presently is the segregation of disabled people in society. When I did the literature review, I found that writers and researchers pointed their finger at these people here. Parental fault. Not all parents, but most parents. There are many parents who are very nice. They do not cherish the disabled infant. Then come the family members. They also look at the infant, disabled infant, as someone who is useless, bringing worry to the family, and they don't want to have anything to do with such a child. Then comes school, society, and the world. Also, the thinking is the same. We must remember that there is diversity in all human beings. If you look at genetics, genetic plays a part. The components of social, emotional, and intellectual are guided by genetics. Then beliefs and attitudes are guided by culture. That is for the normal people. There is diversity already. We must remember that these people who are disabled are not just people who should be just left on the roads, because we ourselves as normal people have some diversity. Now, literature review again. Looking at all what was written by these writers, look at what John Dewey says. About 100 years ago, he already objected to segregation. Then we have other writers. If we go to Vygotsky, he also emphasizes on special educational needs students, that is disabled students, and that they should be integrated into society. So collecting all this, it gave me the idea that this kind of a paradigm shift has to start with young minds. And therefore it can begin with inclusive education. Now let us look at what inclusive education is. If you go to a secondary school in the Malaysian context, you will find in the building where we have disabled students, a block or a wing for special education, the one that's blue. And special educators are training them, teaching them, while on the other side, there are many wings for normal students who are following the general curriculum. The transfer of students from the special education wing to the general education is known as inclusive education. And this dynamic reform has been put into practice in Malaysia already, which is very good, though you find few students in the inclusive classrooms. Inclusive education means students who are disabled and are able to continue with the general curriculum are put with the normal students, and they follow the general curriculum. They get certificates in PMR and SPM, which allows them to work in the factories. Whereas if they are just left in the special education wing, they will train themselves for something, but they don't have certificates, because now the companies and other places also are demanding certificates. Therefore, this is a good move. How did inclusive education start? Inclusive education started with parent lobbying, laws, and the voices of disabled persons asking for recognition of the social model. The medical model is different from the social model. The medical model looks at the disability, but the social model looks at the capability of the disabled person. So this is better and more positive. And then we have other laws. Of course, many laws. If you go into the internet, you will find all this. I've mentioned only 4, but these are supporting inclusive education, especially education for all. is the philosophy of inclusive education? First and foremost, it says to integrate persons with disability into societies. First and foremost, that is the hidden agenda life. And then the teachers should recognize diverse behaviors in class, and teacher education to impact the novice teachers for inclusive education. With that, I thought of a project. My research project, I'm doing PhD, the research project is a sort of a training for inclusive teachers. And my training, this is the concept. Of course, the whole conceptual framework is not here. I'm just giving you a part of the concept. The middle part, you'll notice, is the training program. And it is infused with neurological, biological awareness and inclusive education awareness. The teacher training program is the independent variable. And the independent variable is used to manipulate the dependent variables of competence and readiness of the teachers. Now, this is an ongoing research project. The pilot testing has already been done, but the intervention will be done soon. The aims of this program are to help teachers to realize that the brain, I put a picture there because I thought if it's a bigger crowd, then I'll ask, what is it? The brain is the seat of all learning. We forget sometimes. We are born with that box with the brain, and the teachers are trying to train that brain, but they don't talk about it, they don't know anything about it. So help them to understand that the brain is the seat of learning, and any injury in the brain will cause an impairment, which in turn will cause learning disabilities, and also to increase their knowledge of inclusive education so that they will comprehend and be aware of it better. Now, the methodology to be used, I put it very concisely. I'm using a quasi-experimental design where I have an experimental group and a control group. For the experimental group, I have the pre-test, I have the experiment or the intervention, and I have a post-test. For the control group, there is the pre-test, no experiment, and a post-test. The instrument to be used, which has already been done, is a questionnaire, and that instrument was already used in the pilot testing. The Cronbach alpha coefficient, the coefficient alpha, Cronbach coefficient alpha is 0.71, and therefore the instrument is supposed to be reliable. And this intervention will take about 12 weeks to be finished. The population I'm looking at are the teachers in the Malaysian secondary school inclusive classrooms. Accessible population will be teachers in Penang, and the sample will be the regular teachers in inclusive classes in Penang. And I'm choosing Penang because I'm going to generalize in Penang, then after that to the whole of Malaysia. Now, I would like to share a few points. I'll have to go through like a plane very fast because I have a few things to share with you, what I've put in my training program. Teachers must understand about the brain, that is the vernix and the Broca's area, and what happens in this vernix and the Broca's area. The oral language process, look at the way it's processed. If somebody says something, it goes into the ear, it goes straight into the vernix area, which that's the comprehension of it. Then it passes to the Broca's area where the language is processed, and then goes into the motor cortex, and then the speech takes place. Now, why I'm doing this is teachers have to understand, if anything goes wrong in this process, then the learning disability takes place. Now, if you look at this, you find that the neuron, those are the neurons within the brain, and the neuron, if it wants to engage with another neuron, it needs an electrical impulse which has got to flow down the axon to the terminal. Then only there will be some kind of an understanding. The brain itself works very fast if the activities given involve affective, cognitive, and psychomotor activities. Not only the the brain, but also the genes and the chromosomes are affecting learning problems. Dyslexia occurs because of the cerebellum is affected. Then I will also talk about ASD or autism spectrum disorder. Here I have used 2 photographs which are allowed in the internet, not that I have used without permission. Here we have the sensory defect. The child likes to lie on the grass forever, hours after hours, until the parents have to put some kind of a support. The other one, the boy plays with it for hours and hours. That is autism spectrum disorder. Spectrum, why the word spectrum is used? If you look into a spectrum, you find that there are colors. So if you look into autism, it has got all the different syndromes, just like Asperger's syndrome, Rett syndrome, and so on. Now, I also talk of cerebral palsy, the 3 types. Let the teachers know it's a disorder of movement, so that they will understand what the students are going through with such a disorder. This is Down syndrome, and Down syndrome occurs because of the 21st trisomy. Now, with that, I just want to let you know, share with you that this program is an ongoing program. Transformation of the mind of society will take years, but we will have to start somewhere. And I am thinking that it can start with young minds through inclusive education, because people need to learn to live with differences and to learn from differences. Thank you. Any questions?